So we did the philosophers Kierkegaard, Mill, and Marx.
Soren Kierkegaard.
This is Darshan's philosopher.
He was a 19th century Danish philosopher and grew up in the town of Copenhagen. He was heavily influenced by the scholarly teachings of his father and older brothers. His teachings were highly religious, as he spoke of God not working in the realms of the logical, but those of the absurd, meaning that you had to have placed a certain faith in absurdity to place a certain faith in God. Therefore, only the absurd could believe his teachings. And if one was to think rationally, as you and I were doing, he or she could never be able to accept God. His writings were very confusing in their pseudonyms, because all of them went under a different name, even though he wrote and published all of them. He did this so that he could downplay his own essential role in their creation, and broaden the horizons of his works. He was reveled in satire of contemporary philosophers, such as Hegel and Nietzsche, subtly criticizing their viewpoints whenever possible.
So I had John Stuart Mill. He's a French philosopher and political scientist. He grew up in London, and he is the oldest of his siblings. He was heavily influenced by his father, James Mill. So he started to learn Greek and Latin at the age of 3, and he was highly educated. By that age 20, he experienced a mental breakdown marked by depression, and he called it a mental crisis. And he began to rethink his entire life's works and reformulate his theories that his dad had taught him. And he sought a philosophy that would advance the roles of feeling and imagination. And he allowed himself to see the good in everything and believe that there was good in everything. This is one of his famous works called On Liberty. And he believed that allowing free reign would allow human nature to expand and allow conflicts to be less common, and it supported individuals' moral and economic freedom from the government and society. So he was pretty libertarian now, if you were looking at what they are now. He expressed that individuals' opinions and behavior should enjoy free reign. His other work was utilitarianism, and the definition of utilitarianism is whatever you have exactly. Okay, it's but it's basically that. It's that whatever you choose to do is the right action. And it defines right and wrong actions, and he said that actions are right in proportion as they tend to promote happiness, wrong as they tend to produce the reverse of happiness. And he discusses the good and evil and argues that happiness is the sole basis of mortality. And then this is
Sheets. You're a good man, John Stuart Mill.
I did Karl Marx. He's kind of a good person to know about since he was really influential. And since everyone read Animal Farm in 9th grade, it was an allegory, and he was one of the characters. I forget which one, but he was in there somewhere. He was born in Germany. He was the oldest son of 8 brothers and sisters. And when he went to college, he first went to the University of Bonn and joined the Poets Club, which had a bunch of political radicals in it and was being monitored by the police. So, yeah, I like that stuff, I guess. And he went there because he wanted to study literature and philosophy, except his father made him study law, and he was never really interested in that, and his grades started slipping. So his father moved him to a more rigorous school at the University of Berlin, and he still studied law. except he also still liked philosophy, so he was looking to for a way to combine the two. And he joined the Young Hegelians in the Doctors Club, and they both sort of follow the teachings of Hegel. And when he died, he died of inflamed mucous membranes. That's kind of a terrible death. It's like you have a sinus infection. And he had 4 daughters, and he named them all Jenny after his wife. That's just kind of weird. Fun fact. So he had his philosophy, not his political philosophy, but it's kind of complicated. So I'm trying to dumb it down, and it's a little hard. So he's saying that you can realize your potential by transforming your nature consciously. And for self-development, we have to recognize that we have both an actual self and a potential self. And you have to sort of view them objectively and you have to influence material objects to come to terms with your potential. So it's all about self-critiquing kind of, and being conscious of yourself, and to realize your potential. And he said that human nature exists as a function of human labor because we have to work because you're influencing the material objects to come to terms with your potential. So it's kind of confusing. And then he had more radical philosophical thoughts. Well, it started out that he liked Hegel's idea that no thought or thing could be separated from its opposite. So, you can't have a slave without a slave master, and you can't have, a slave master without a slave, kind of like that. And so, Hegel thought that unity can be achieved by equalizing all opposites. So he sort of applied that to capitalism. And he attended socialist meetings organized by this guy named Moses Hess in Cologne. And so he introduced the idea of communism to the world. And communism is he believed it was the end point of human social evolution. That's the only way you can, it's the final destination. Achieving socialism and communism would be the best. And it's when you have common ownership of everything and the means of production, and there's no classes and no money, and the state kind of owns everything. And his wife was actually from a higher social class than him, so that kind of worked out well for him to not have any classes. And he influenced some of the other people who in the future set up communist states like Stalin and Lenin, and they sort of took his idea and built on it. And he had a friend, and he was a German socialist that he got along really well with, and they sort of shared ideas, named Friedrich Engels, and he convinced him of the power of the revolutionary working class. So if you could get them on your side, you could pretty much do anything. So he sort of tried to sell them the idea that the working class could overthrow the elite. And so I tried to clarify what communism is. And socialism instead of communism. Well, socialism is really similar. It's the working class has the state power, and there's no capitalism. There's no private ownership of property, or no capitalist economy. And all the institutions, political, economic, and social in a society are owned by the state. And Engels, his friend who influenced him a lot, who was a socialist, and Marx made the Communist Manifesto, and that sort of just outlined their whole idea and what it meant and what you would need to do and not do. And I actually have the 10 planks of that, so I left them in my cubby. So I can get those for you after this, which is right now.
That's it.
That's us, everybody.
Hey.
You all have a good night.